Today on Locked On Sabres, some business of the Sabres to talk about as there is news on the arena lease, which expires in October. And there are questions that need to be answered about the Sabres and the arena going forward. That, as well as a little preview of Sabres and Hurricanes coming up today on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Watch us on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe the show, as well as our Locked On Sabres text club. We can get involved with the show there. Join subtext.com/Locked On Sabres is the place to sign up for that. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a game day, the Sabres and the Hurricanes tonight. Want to talk a little bit about Carolina in the middle of today's show. I have referenced them in the past as a type of blueprint for the Buffalo Sabres and their build. And I want to kind of update where that is and how the two teams are drastically different from where I had hoped the Sabres could get to, and why they still might have the potential, though, to get there. That coming up on today's episode, as we'll talk a little bit about tonight's opponent, some business of the Sabres to talk about first. If you would like to check out our Locked On Sabres favorite Sabre bracket, you just had the college basketball tournament come to an end. If you're still interested in a bracket, head over to @LockedOnSabres, where we are trying to determine who the most well-liked Sabre is of all time. We had a couple of upsets yesterday in the tournament. Who's your favorite? Pat LaFontaine narrowly edging out Jason Pominville, Alexander McGillney beating out Danny Gare, and in a very tight one, Rasmus Dahlin comes out on top over Gilbert Perreault. Not that surprising, though, because in an exercise like this, it's going to be more about guys that have played recently, of course. So Dahlin moving on. So that's at Locked On Sabres if you would like to check it out. I was meaning today to get to lots of stuff on the Hurricanes and tonight's game, of course, but my attention has been a little bit sidetracked due to the news of the last 24 hours that pertains to the Buffalo Sabres from a financial standpoint, from a business standpoint, from an arena standpoint. And there are a couple of things that are, I think, worth talking about. I am somebody that my interests as a sports fan, as time's gone on, I've become more of an adult, and I've become more interested and curious about sports business. In fact, I'm doing this, just New Year's resolution. One of them was I wanted to read more books this year. So I'm reading a book every month. And two of the three books I've read are sports business books so far. So I'm trying to get more into this stuff. I like learning about this stuff because so much of sports now is determined by the money. And it's sometimes just buried right below the surface. Motivations of teams, even from player, roster management, is a money decision, even when you think it's not. And that, of course, goes beyond player management. That can also be more about, in this case for the Sabres, it's going to be about the arena and what's to come of that. Because the stadium down at Orchard Park is nearing completion. They had their topping ceremony recently, and they're a little past the halfway point, and now they move on to exterior shell at the stadium, and they're getting there. Within a year, it should be about done. And 2026, it opens up for the Buffalo Bills. Well, that's not the only facility that needs attention and focus in the Buffalo sports market. Of course, KeyBank Center, if you are a regular goer to Sabre games or a season ticket holder even, you know that building is pretty much crumbling. It needs a lot of things dressed up on the inside, especially in areas of the facility that fans experience. They put the new roof in last year. They put the new scoreboard in last year. So a couple of arena upgrades, but certainly much more are needed, including number one, I think for most would be the seats. The seats are old, the seats are dirty, and they've been there for a long time. And it's, I think, far past time that they be replaced. There are other things. There are cracks in the concrete when you go out into the concourse. The concourse in general just hasn't really been updated in a very long time. You've had the same paint job, the same pictures that have been hanging on the wall for more than as long as I can remember going to the arena. And there have been these modest upgrades. The food's gotten a little bit better, in some areas. So again, there's some going on, but so much more is needed. And you probably need major renovations at some point in time. Well, that lines up with the expiration of a 30-year lease that has transcended 4 ownership groups for the Buffalo Sabres. The lease that was signed between the Buffalo Sabres and the city of Buffalo and Erie County comes to an end this October. It was signed when the arena opened on September 21st of 1996. That's when the arena opened, but the lease was a 30-year lease, expires in October. Now, the interesting thing about this lease, one, it was a very long lease, right? A 30-year lease between the two sides. That actually might be pretty normal, actually, when you look around in sports. That happens. But 30-year lease, it goes through the Knoxes, and then the Regases, and then Golisano, and then to Terry Pegula, the lease transfers through. Well, one thing about this lease that I'm sure from Terry Pegula's perspective, something he probably hates about this thing, that, again, is 3 ownership groups before him when it was signed and negotiated, the deal was very heavy on private money. The Sabres, at the time, in 95, only put $30 million of their own money towards an arena project whose overall budget, the approximate before overages, was $127 million, $127,500,000. So less than 1/4 of the money put towards that project was private from the Sabres. Part of the concession, from my understanding, I actually read through a lot of the lease bullet points and summary effects that you could find. It's public record today. Is like, and one thing, this is actually been reported, that a lot of, actually all of the renovations at the arena are the responsibility of the Buffalo Sabres. So when you see an arena project last year that includes a new roof and a new scoreboard that costs $13 million, that all comes out of Terry Pegula's pocket. It's not publicly funded. The city doesn't have any responsibility, from what I've seen, to do anything about the arena. That it's the Sabres. So when that lease ends, I want to bet the Sabres are going to make that a negotiating plot of getting that to the point where it's not just them on the hook for arena upgrades, that they're going to want the city to be on the hook for more arena upgrades. Now, part of the reason I'm bringing this up today is, and that I'm saying the city, is the county's out. And that's a little interesting in its own way, that Mark Polenkars, the Erie County executive, said yesterday that the county will be walking away from its responsibility for the downtown arena. When their ownership obligations end, they want out. That in large part, I almost feel like that is their calling. We know the Sabres are about to come to us and want a different sort of deal, and we just don't even want to play ball. We're out. So therefore, ownership of the arena will go to the city. And specifically, according to the news article I read, Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency. So it's going to be the city and the Sabres who are going to be the two parties that we're going to be locking in on. And how is this going to come about in the fall is going to be interesting. What types of details get worked out? What does it mean for the fan experience? That's what I really care about the most, is if I'm a fan going to the game, what does a new lease in the fall mean for me? I would like to believe that it means whoever pays for it, arena upgrades are coming. They have to be. That's got to be the number one thing that's on the table for this upcoming lease, unless the Sabres start pushing for a brand new building. I don't think that's going to happen. I guess it could. It's not one of the newer buildings in the league anymore, and we've talked about the things it needs. Actually, as I say that, I guess it would have to be a long-term projected out type of new building. Like maybe you just start the conversation, but you're nowhere near really completion or negotiating it, because Pegula did just put all that money into the roof and scoreboard, and he's not going to want to turn around and have a new building within 2 years, I would think. Maybe in 10, though. So that'll be interesting. Now, it also comes the same day that former Sabre president Larry Quinn went on with Craig Rivet and Andrew Peters on After the Whistle, their podcast, and he talked extensively about the Sabres and the business of it. And one thing that one texter reached out to me to talk about was that Quinn was very defensive of Terry Pegula being the Buffalo Sabres owner, and that if Terry was to sell the team at any point, he wouldn't be so sure about the chances of the Sabres staying in Buffalo. And this is a question I get asked once in a while, and something I even ponder myself once in a while. I've mentioned it maybe on the show before. The pondering of, if they were to sell, what does that look like? Is there any risk that the team could leave? And my standpoint on that has always been absolutely not. Terry Pegula owns the Buffalo Bills across town. He is not going to jeopardize the relationship with the government of this area and the fans of this area when his biggest business is tied to this area by allowing the Buffalo Sabres to leave. And that's not even to speak to, that's why he's here in the first place, right? Like his childhood love or young adult love of the Buffalo Sabres, listening to WGR on a bridge to hear Gilbert Perreault. And that's why he's here, crying at the podium when Perreault is sitting in the stands of the audience 14 years ago when he becomes the owner. That's why he's here. That on top of alienating people locally, I think what has always drove me to believe, no, he would never let them leave. But I guess I'm not so sure, because the Bills are such a mega business, and people are not going to stop going to Bills games if the Sabres were to leave. They're not. So, like, especially if they're still great. So maybe they could, but I think it's so unlikely that this discussion would even arrive at, a critical mass, because I don't think Terry is going to sell the team. Maybe he tries to sell a minority ownership of the team. And even if he wanted to, this is another thing that Quinn got into. The economics of the Sabres don't really work for an outside entity to really want them. I mean, think about what you're buying. You're spending $900 million to $1 billion on a hockey team. It's about what the Arizona Coyotes went for, to be in Buffalo, where it's not Dallas, it's not LA, it's not New York, it's not Toronto. And it's a team that's been so bad and doesn't have a strong season ticket base right now. They cannot be making a ton of money. So what kind of appeal does that have to the outside buyer? Unless you can find another person that has billions and billions of dollars that has a strong emotional tie to the Buffalo Sabres. And I'm hesitant to believe that person is out there. So I don't think that they have any chance of moving. But that's because I don't believe there's any chance of Terry Pegula selling them. And that's kind of, I think, what Quinn said. Quinn basically said the same thing, that I don't think they're going to leave because I don't think he's going to sell them. But that if he were to sell them, that I'd have some major questions about their viability in the city long term. So all this to say that have it on your mind, have it on the radar. If you're someone that goes to a lot of games, the arena, and there are going to be some questions that are going to be answered about the Buffalo Sabres in the next 12 months about their future downtown and what that looks like. And maybe it's just status quo. They sign a new, this is what they did with the Bill Stadium recently, which was short lease agreements that kind of baby step their way to a brand new stadium. And maybe we start to get some of that. You get like a 5 to 10 year lease and you go from there. But that's going to have to come in the fall. And who's on the hook for renovation costs is something that I'm going to be watching most notably. All right, that's the business of the Sabres. When we come back tonight, Carolina. The Hurricanes were a blueprint that I thought was very possible for the Sabres a couple of years ago. Why that hasn't happened when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres, speaking of finances and money, Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Whether it is dining, whether it is online shopping. For me, my guilty pleasure is golf clothes. Wearing some right now. Golf clothes. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, which gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. So instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan some long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner, smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Stinky Joe DiBiase here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Sabres and the Hurricanes. This is a matchup that the Sabres get smoked in when they are on the road, but at home, Carolina is locked into the 2 spot in the Metro Division. They can't go up, they can't go down. And also, the Sabres have been dynamite at home for basically 3.5 months. The Sabres even putting some graphics out today about their home record in that time, that they have the 6th best record, 778 points percentage, 14-4 since January 1st. And on the season now, it's 21-14-3. So it's been going good. So here comes Carolina. The Hurricanes, though, are a great team. And all their advanced numbers show they're still one of the best teams in hockey. They've been a little unlucky with goal scoring this year, but they're a great team going into the playoffs. The Hurricanes were a team I thought the Sabres could really become like 2 years ago. Actually, more so last year. When the Sabres traded for Bo Byram. I thought, all right, this is the path to contention. It's not often that you have this around the league. The Hurricanes are one of the few examples of a team that does not have a superstar up front. They have a star in Sebastian Aho. They do not have a superstar. They tried with Mikko Rantanen, but he's gone already. What they have is an overall good team, lots of good players up front, depth up front, and then crazy good defensemen. And they've been a team for years that have been loaded on the back end. Now, that's taken a little bit of a step back. Jacob Slavin is still one of the most underappreciated defensemen in the sport. He is so good defensively. The likes of Brett Pesce and Justin Falk, and these are guys that have moved on from the team and been replaced with Brent Burns and Dmitry Orlov, Shane Gostisbehere. You have some of these retread offensive style defensemen that have come in that are playing big minutes. Jalen Chatfield is more of a tough nose guy that plays about 19 minutes a night, but still overall a good blue line, a very good blue line, and a great system defensively. And that's led by Rod Brindamore, but great talent on the blue line for years. And I thought, all right, with Byram here now, top 5 pick, he's been really good in Colorado. He looked good early for the Sabres, combined with a Norris caliber defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin, and a number 1 overall pick with loads of potential in Owen Power. I don't need a superstar forward. I don't need it because I'm going to have a great blue line and a great overall defensive system that is going to propel me forward. And the Sabres have not built that at all. Dahlin is still amazing, and you have Owen Power taking some steps, but he's still lacking in other areas. And then Byram, who's we're kind of back and forth on. He looked great with Dahlin, but he's looked pretty bad without Dahlin. He has not looked so great lately. He pinches a lot, sometimes when he's not supposed to. And of course, the idea of Byram staying long-term is something that I just don't really buy into. I think he's likely gone this summer even. So you're back to Power and Dahlin leading the way, which is great, but is that enough for that to be the thing that makes you a contender? And that's, to me, where the difference has really been made, is not just though it's behind those two. It is that Carolina 1 through 5 defensively have been really good for years and years and years. The Sabres past the top two, Samuelson especially, and Clifton at $3 million, which was a signing for the Sabres, and Bryson, and these guys just are not the same. They are not giving you the same type of production. So that stops you from having the blue line be the strength of your hockey team. It's been the forwards, it's been the goal scoring, and it's been Tage Thompson up front, who arguably is a superstar. He's on par with Aho, at least, I think. So that's why it hasn't really happened that way. Can it still? I mean, the only way it would, where the Sabres become a legitimate contender and it's fueled by their back end, Byram would have to stay long-term and become more consistent, and Owen Power would have to turn into like Victor Hedman. All three of those things, if those two things happen, then I'm back to thinking, all right, this is the thing that's going to make you great, is you've got three defensemen that are better than anybody else's top three defensemen. But I don't think you're going to get Byram to stick around long term. And him and Power have been the letdowns on that front. Power, at least, I think, is going to get there eventually. Carolina is a great hockey team. They are kind of like the NHL's version of the Buffalo Bills. They, every year, under Rod Brindamore, who you could compare in this way to Sean McDermott, is just consistent, and he always gets you to the playoffs. He always has the team looking great, and he doesn't get through to the finals. Look at Carolina since Brindamore came in. Made the playoffs every time, and here are their results. Lost in conference finals, lost in first round, lost in second round, lost in second round, lost in conference finals, lost in second round. Every year, they're just a little bit short. And I don't know where it really gets them over the hump. Kochekov, I think, in goal could be that difference. There have been those years where goaltender has been the thing that's let them down. That's kind of familiar here, right? But past that, I don't really know what Carolina misses in the playoffs. They're so good. They're number one in the league in expected goals for percentage this year at 5-on-5. They just are always great in all those advanced numbers. They have such a great team system, good defensemen, good forwards, but it's just they never close the deal. It's a team I always want to bet on, but I mean, and I've lost enough times to be skeptical. So Carolina tonight. And again, they're not really playing for much because they're locked into that second seed. When we come back to wrap things up, the goaltending situation for tonight, some other notes about tonight's game, and the Reimer versus UPL story down the stretch here. I want to get to when we come back. You're on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast presented by Indeed. You just realized that your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. Well, how can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page. It'll help you reach the right candidates faster. If you've ever been in that spot where you need the hire yesterday, there's anxiety to that. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Wrapping things up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Sabres continue to look for home dominance, this time over Carolina, a stiffer test. The Sabres are a big underdog for tonight's game at plus 198 on the money line against Carolina. I am going chalk for my sneaky bet of the night. Tage Thompson plus 170 to score a goal. He is on fire. He's chasing 50. I really like Thompson for that. And how about How about, well, I guess Zach Benson's not up anymore. I thought he was. And no, there he is, plus 550. Plus 550 at FanDuel Sportsbook to score a goal tonight. Playing on the top line. He doesn't score a lot, so it's going to have to be like a rebound goal in front. But when you get the same odds as Tyson Jost, who's on the other side of the ice for Carolina, former Buffalo Sabre, I like those odds. So anyways, to tonight's game. 7 o'clock puck drop at KeyBank Center. James Reimer is going to be in goal again for the Buffalo Sabres. He continues to get into the net. Luukkonen only a couple of starts in recent weeks. Reimer, I guess when I talked about Reimer 2 weeks ago, it was I don't really need to see him down the stretch here because I just don't see an outcome where he's back next year. But I do think Lindy Ruff made a good point this morning when I asked him on WGR about the how they approach the final stretch of the season. And Lindy defended the meaning of these last games and getting wins and getting as many wins as possible, not worrying as much about development and whatnot. And Lindy talked about wanting to win as much as possible, and more specifically about the mental aspect of a player going into an offseason where the team was just winning. And the momentum, that maybe that doesn't carry into the offseason or to the regular season next year, but getting guys in a better headspace to work out and to come back in elite shape when you have finished strong, building off that, rather than, I mean, you can understand this, right? Like if the team was losing on a losing streak going into the summer, I mean, what's an average player's approach? It's probably, I just got to get away from it. I can't think about this for months. You know, it was so bad. I dread thinking about what I'm going back to. Whereas if you've won a bunch, it's like, oh, can't wait to get back out there. You know, when I was talking to Lindy about this, I mentioned a golf comparison that especially in Buffalo, when you only have 6 months of golf, you finish the fall strong. And this is something that happened to me. I played a lot of golf at the end of last year. And for myself, you know, I'm only shooting in the 80s, so it's not super impressive to most, to scratch golfers especially. But for me, it's like, oh man, I finished strong and I cannot wait until the season gets back. And meanwhile, here we got snow still in April. But I can't wait to get back out there. And had I finished terribly, I probably wouldn't be as excited, is ecstatic to get back out on the course. And maybe that's a little bit of the same thing for the Sabres. So that circles me back to James Reimer here. Reimer gives the Sabres a better chance to win. He gives the fans a better chance to be happy on these home games they keep winning at. Ever since I said it, they've been accomplishing it. That the bar for this team in the final months of the year was don't have people leaving the building mad. And they have cleared that bar every time they've been faced with it. So that continues to be the goal. Whatever. I'm good. I'm not going to live or die on seeing Luukkonen 4 more times this season to figure out if he's my number one goalie next year. I think the story for his year has been written, and he's going to be the number one goalie anyway. So Reimer in goal, I've got no problem with it. In fact, I'm actually maybe would prefer it at this point. Just win as many games as you can, whatever. You think it's important, and there's good defense maybe for that it is important. I still roll my eyes a little bit that it makes any impact once you get to October. I think a lot of that goes out the window in a week. But I guess if it does make an impact on their summers, then that could translate to the season. I don't know. Sabres and Hurricanes tonight, 7 o'clock puck drop at KeyBank Center. 7:10, really. You know, if we really want to be accurate here, it's you get 7 o'clock, then you get the anthems, then you get the dun, 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 on the Jumbotron. They're playing their music as they get ready, and then finally you get to puck drop. So 7:10. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow after it's done. I'm going to do a Zach Benson deep dive this week, but we'll see. Maybe he'll keep firing up some offense with that top line with Kulik and Tage Thompson heading forward. Check out Locked On NHL. Looking for all your league-wide stories, all the local and national coverage that matters. Locked On NHL, wherever you get your podcast, YouTube as well. Talk to you tomorrow. You're on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.